Good morning. Welcome to the early line here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish, going to be with you here for the next few weeks while we have World Cup action. I'm going to be sitting in with Joe Raineri to get you ready for your sports wagering day each and every Monday through Friday. So welcome into the show. We got a lot to get to here on the program. We'll talk some NHL, some NBA, and of course, it's a big Major League Baseball weekend as well. And in fact, in the Stanley Cup playoffs last night, we had a significant move, and we'll tell you about that, and also prediction markets coming up in about 90 minutes from now. But before we get started, we turn it over to my partner here, of course, the host of the Early Line, Joe Raineri. It's time for Caffeinated Joe.
Well, Craig, I thought it'd be really good if we talked about, I don't know, the World Cup, which just started yesterday, and of course how FIFA is ruining the one thing casual soccer fans actually loved about watching the sport. Because yesterday, the 2026 World Cup kicked off, and Mexico beat South Africa 2-0, which was fun, but nobody was talking about the actual action on the pitch after that game, because instead social media was in an absolute uproar over FIFA's brand new mandated, and I quote, hydration breaks. Yes, hydration breaks now. They claim these 3-minute pauses at the 22 and 67-minute mark of every match are for player welfare and well-being. That did not go over all that well to the casual soccer fan, because the veil is so thin, it is laughable right now, because this is just a naked corporate cash grab to cram full screen commercials down our throats mid-game. And that's really all it is, because casual American fans loved soccer for one principal reason: efficiency. You turned on the game, you got two uninterrupted halves, and in 90 minutes or so, it was over and you went on with your life. That was the key to soccer and watching it. But FIFA completely overestimated not only the patience, but also the wallets of the American consumer during this World Cup, apparently, as we still have thousands upon thousands of tickets that have gone unsold for these matches. They essentially turned the sport into a game of, well, 4 quarters now, creating over 800 new ad spots throughout this tournament just to squeeze a few extra bucks and revenue from the U.S. consumer. And to make it an absolute disaster, Fox Sports completely botched the very first test yesterday. Their ads ran so long in the second half that viewers came back to the game after the play had already resumed. You literally can't make this up. And even the U.S. men's national team coach admitted that he hates the new rules and finds it completely unnecessary unless conditions are extreme, which is funny since the last World Cup, I believe, was in Qatar, which is pretty much the desert. Now, meanwhile, Telemundo is proving that it can be done right. How? Well, they're refusing to run the full screen ads during the pauses to protect the authentic experience, which is ultimately all soccer fans want. FIFA is already making record revenue, yet they just could not resist squeezing every last penny out of the consumer. If you were on the fence about how greedy this organization truly is, well, I think yesterday gave you your answer. But here's hoping that Team USA can run the table and win a ton of games here over the next couple of weeks. But let's hope, Craig, that they stay hydrated as well.
Well, Joe, I mean, that does sound like bad news, but honestly, I think it's a great idea. So we are announcing here on the early line that our first hydration break is coming at 7:18 a.m. When you tune into the show, you're just going to see me drinking coffee on the show, and Joe with 7 Red Bulls and 1 in each hand to get through the show here. No, all things considered, though, yes, I mean, definitely a new way to watch the World Cup this season, but I don't think anybody should be surprised. I mean, this is soccer's premier event. I mean, I guess in the future, who knows? You know, some people, Joe, they just watch one sport one time. Maybe the Triple Crown will have hydration breaks too. You know, they stop halfway through running the horses. They make them stop to get a little bit of a drink and then keep going. But great stuff by Joe as we begin the show. All right, so let's get to the Stanley Cup Finals here for a minute. It does appear the Carolina Hurricanes are now officially on the doorstep of winning their first Stanley Cup in 20 years. They beat the Golden Knights last night 4-2. Each game has been better than the next, although last night the Carolina Hurricanes were in control. As of right now, there's one game to be played. There's a possibility it could be 7 games, Joe, but this does seem like inevitable. Carolina looks like the better team in this series.
Well, it certainly did last night, and they finally got some goaltending, which I think helps here. But listen, Vegas has been feisty, and they are going back home. I had always said, Craig, all week, I was hoping for 7 games. It's been a fun series, a great series. I don't think there's a lot separating these two teams. So it would not shock me if we're back in Carolina next week for a Game 7.
In baseball this weekend, of course, weekend slates begin. Teams are in new places, and an old face returns on Saturday. Tariq Skubal is going to be back on the mound for the first time in the majors in over a month. He had a surgery that is getting him back on the field faster than anyone that has had this injury before. He made a minor league start on Sunday, and he looked great. Now he gets an opportunity to come back, and you see, of course, the American League Cy Young markets have certainly shifted quite a bit since he's been out, Joe, but he looked really good in his first minor league start back. What do you make of his start coming up this weekend?
Well, I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that he is scheduled for quite the payday coming up here. And how long is he actually even going to be wearing a Tigers uniform, I think is the next question, because is he going to remain a Tiger come the trade deadline? That a lot of question marks right now, but something tells me, Craig, had he already gotten a $500 million contract, which he's likely going to be pushing here over the next couple of months, would he even be back here this fast after this? Because you mentioned it, less than a month, and he had surgery on his elbow. I wish him nothing but the best. I really do.
Yeah, he's, definitely the best pitcher in the free agent market.
Ooh.
And of course, who knows if there's even going to be an extended free agent market this season, maybe a month before they lock it up, as they say, but who knows? All right, real quick, let's get to an NFL story here. Henry Ruggs, who we haven't heard his name in quite some time, was denied parole by the Nevada Board of Parole Commissioners. And certainly, Ruggs was guilty in 2023 to a DUI that resulted in death and a misdemeanor vehicular manslaughter charge that killed a woman and her dog. So we will not see Henry Ruggs out of jail anytime soon.
No, 1 year, I think, is the now he's got to wait 1 more year. He's 27 years old. And from what I understand, most people, their first time up for parole doesn't often go well there, Craig.
Phil Mickelson is no longer a member at the Farms Golf Club outside San Diego. A female club employee has accused him of inappropriate contact before a round of golf earlier this spring. How about that?
Yeah, well, I guess there's an opening at that golf club in San Diego you always wanted to belong to there, Craig. So there you go. Opportunity knocks.
Definitely not. Mexico wins the first match, as Joe mentioned, 2-0 against South Africa. They were a heavy favorite in this one. And I guess if you bet them minus a goal and a half, that was more reasonable than the minus 500 going into this thing.
Yes, good win for them, by the way. And yeah, a lot of people thought they might be a sleeper here in this tournament, worth keeping an eye on.
All right, we'll take a quick break here on the early line. Plenty more to come here on the show. We will get into a whole lot more when we return here on the program and start talking some more World Cup. We have Team USA ready to kick off, so to speak, this afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. You're watching the early line here on SportsGrid, and we'll be right back. Good morning. Welcome back to the early line here on Sports Grid. I'm Craig Mish along with Joe Raineri. Got you covered on everything happening this weekend and also recapping everything that happened yesterday. Joe and I begin with some talk, of course, about the World Cup with Mexico taking their first match. But today, all of the eyes of the soccer world will be on Team USA. Joe, they play Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Also, Canada versus Bosnia gets all the action started.
Yeah, it does. Obviously, host nation Canada is kicking it off. Toronto will be the place against Bosnia. And, unlike Canada, Bosnia had to actually qualify for the tournament, and they had to do it the hard way, too. So they had to go to knockout rounds, and boy, they just kept clawing their way, but they've made it. And believe it or not, everybody that I have talked to here, Canada's a team on the rise, this national team. And host nations usually fare very well early on in the World Cup. I have a bunch of soccer guys that I know, and they love the value Canada brings to the table, not just in this game at a great price, but the fact that Group B, which is what they are in, they love them to win Group B. They like them to make some noise in this World Cup simply because they feel they're one of the more underpriced teams. I tend to agree with them. Bosnia's best player is 40 years old, Craig. I can't imagine either of us leading a team to victory on the pitch in the World Cup. So I think Canada's got some value here.
Also, Team USA plays, Joe, and this is going to be, the real test, I think, ratings-wise, to see how the World Cup does. As you mentioned, a lot of different changes to it. But you would imagine here in the United States, it all gets started when they take on Paraguay tonight. The game is in Los Angeles. It's 9 p.m. Eastern. Team USA, of course, is plus 105. And for me, this is just so important. It's rare because the World Cup is so long, Joe. But if you want to have faith that Team USA is going to have a good run, they got to get off to a good start tonight. Like so many years we've been doing these, Joe, and you've been doing these shows. We've been talking about soccer here in the U.S. We've been talking about Team USA. This is the year. This is the year. This is the year. And it's never the year. I'm not saying that this has to be the one, but an important first showing to give some confidence to everybody is important.
Yeah, and interesting. I mean, a recent injury, too, to one of Paraguay's best guys, too. The guy that kind of sets everything up for them wasn't good, was stretchered off in the last game there against Nicaragua, I think in the friendlies, was stretchered off. So they're going to be down a pretty important player here. But the host nation is always going to get love here, certainly in the marketplace, right? There is some cautious optimism in the market about the U.S. I mean, look at the price. It's not like they're overwhelming favorites here. This is one of those games, Greg, where, yeah, sure, on the money line, the U.S. to win. I think both teams to score is also a pretty good market because I do think goals are coming. I don't expect that this is going to be one of these, 0-0, or we'll have to move on from there, maybe 1-0. I think both teams are going to score, but I think the U.S. has also got some value here at this price heading into it.
Meanwhile, in Major League Baseball, one of the primary matchups of the night includes one of the favorites to win the National League Cy Young. That's Jacob Misiorowski pitching for the Milwaukee Brewers. Is this a playoff preview? Possibly. It's June, so we certainly don't know exactly. But as you can see, Joe, Milwaukee is just a huge favorite tonight at home, minus 235. The total is 7.5, and the reason why this line is what it is isn't so much even as Misiorowski. It's the fact that the Phillies have a big problem in their rotation. Andrew Painter has been the one guy every 5 days. I know eventually, Joe, he's going to be a great pitcher in the big leagues, but he's the one guy right now that's struggling to get outs.
Yeah, it has not been good, but the bats have been good for the Phillies here. And listen, they're going to give a Miz, I think, a run for his money. But you nailed it, Craig. I mean, minus 250. Stop it. The Phillies aren't going away anytime. They've got a ton of experience in that lineup there. I do think, and they've been playing really, really well, swinging the bat much better. And anytime you got figures that you need a Yankee in order to actually turn the Phillies around. Mattingly has done an amazing job since getting the call there, and I think they're going to give Miz. This has got run line written all over it to me. I'll take the 1.5. I'll take the Phillies lineup because at some point He's going to have to come out. That bullpen's going to have to come in here. And as long as they can limit the damage somewhat here, I think the Phillies are alive in this one.
The Braves take on the Mets, one team going one way and the other going another. That's been the story all season long. Mets started to play a little bit better, by the way, but really not making a ton of progress in the standings. Spencer Strider starts for Atlanta. When the Mets win, it's usually this guy pitching, and that's Nolan McLean. He starts tonight, but as you can see, the Braves are just super tough, so you can't make New York that big a favorite. Total 8.5 tonight at Citi Field.
They waited so long to call that game last night in Chicago with the White Sox, who are about to sweep the Braves, if you can believe that. But they waited a long time for that. Chicago now has to fly out west to begin a West Coast series there, and Atlanta had to leave late to go play the Mets here today. I think the Braves are certainly going to benefit from not having to play yesterday because it was getting a little rough there in Chicago, but I think they can exhale. They've done a great job of handling the Mets. Although McLean has bounced back. He had a couple of rough starts there to end the month in May. Nice start his last time out, although against the Padres, I don't think the Mets won. There's a shocker. But I think the Braves at this price certainly worth taking a look at here tonight at Citi Field.
And then finally, we've got the WNBA action. It's the Valkyries against the Storm. Valkyries are minus 9.5 tonight. That game tips off at 10 p.m. Eastern.
Two teams heading in two totally different directions. The Valkyries actually winning some games, looking pretty good. The Storm sitting at 3-11 right now, and they have no offense. They can't score, and that's a problem against Golden State, who will have no problem putting up some points in this one. So if I'm playing this game, I'm laying it with Golden State. That's for sure.
Let's take a quick time out here on the early line. We'll come back with more, including some previews of tomorrow's NBA Finals game. You're watching the early line here on Newswire, and we'll be back after these messages. Don't go away. We'll have full previews of course, the NBA Finals coming up tomorrow night. What an exciting finish it was a couple of nights ago. One of the most exciting finishes you could see in the NBA, unless you're a San Antonio Spurs fan. First, we'll get to the story that came out yesterday about Terry Rozier, who now I think we can officially call a former NBA player, pled not guilty to federal charges of bribery and wire fraud. Prosecutors say that he accepted $100,000 in a bribe to tip off bettors that he was bailing on that game on March 2023 on his under prop, allowing more than $200,000 in bets to be placed. You know, I mean, Joe, when I look at this story, the only thing that I can think is that there's some sort of like sickness or illness involved, because none of this really makes any sense. You know, with the amount of money that this guy was making in the National Basketball Association, I guess it's just easy for us to say, how can you do it? What's going on here? But beyond just some unheralded situation that hasn't been discussed, these stories of this kind of money to be made when the players are making millions of dollars doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as sure as we're sitting here, Greg, I am sure they have wiretaps. They've got, video. They have probably, because they have not backed down from this at all. I think 2027 is the next court date for him. But if this is all true, right, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But if it's all true, it's as old as time. Greed, right? What else could it possibly be? You are sitting there risking $97 million for $100,000. It's for no other reason than greed. I mean, that's the only reason I can come up with here. And where there's smoke, there's likely fire. Something tells me probably not the only time he did this.
Yeah, very, very sad story for everyone involved, and maybe even saddest for these NBA teams that had to pay Terry Rozier this season, although the NBA hasn't determined that just yet. Remember, he was on the ineligible list there for a while. Okay, the NBA getting ready for another game tomorrow. Can't have a better finish than the other day, and so the Knicks decided to say that OG Anunoby, who ended up hitting the game-winning shot, is now officially have his own day. It's June 11th, 2026. Indeed forever. I think that this is a great idea, Joe, with the exception of what happens if they lose the next few games of this series? You're always going to remember this great shot, this great win, and then San Antonio came back and won this. I'm not saying that they will, but isn't this a little early? Shouldn't you wait a few days?
Everything they have done in this series revolving around the Knicks has been as if they had already won the championship. The game 3, the celebrations, it's like, can we just wait until they win the 4th game? Because you and I both know, Greg, what is the hardest game in a best-of-7 series to win? It's the last one. It's the closeout game. So can we wait until that happens before we start naming bridges and libraries and streets and everything else? That would be great. And he is maybe the antithesis of everything that represents New York. He doesn't say 2 words. He's the quietest dude, nicest guy, doesn't say anything. And yet here you are, you're already naming a day for him. Like, come on, can we just win the Larry O'Brien first, then we can celebrate afterwards.
Mike Greenberg of ESPN says that fans are a disgrace for throwing eggs at Victor Wembanyama and basically going after the Spurs in New York. We've seen this now a couple of different times, Joe. The team bus getting attacked as well. I mean, there's really nothing to disagree with here, is there?
No, you can't fix stupid, Craig. And that's the problem. The level, the mentality of these idiots is beyond me, because you do realize this team that you so much love has to get on a plane and has to now fly to San Antonio. And now you're setting them up for their fans to retaliate. Like, do they not understand how this works, Craig? Apparently not. So you got to be better than this. It's ridiculous.
The line for tomorrow night's game, by the way, Spurs favored by 5.5 points with a total of 216.5. I mean, this series has been so unpredictable, as you could see from last game, with Spurs being up 30 points basically and coming back to blow it. I don't know, Joe. I tend to think that this series isn't over yet, but I don't know if they're going to cover this big number.
It's history tells us, right, there's a pretty good chance this will come back to New York for game 6, that, teams that win cover, whether it's the dog or it's the favorite, they win. So let's see exactly how this goes. But the big question is, does New York have anything left in the tank after that win in game 4?
Good point. All right, we'll take a quick break on the early line and be back with more on this Friday next.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Terrible start last year, injured all the way through, didn't have a chance to win that Major League Baseball season. This year, first team to 20 wins, first team to 30 wins, first team to 40 wins. It's all in the Atlanta Braves. Good baseball club lurking around here.
They still have some guys, some starting pitchers on the shelf there that could help them down the road, but the Braves are sitting pretty right now.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time and he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, the talk has been about sports betting handle being down or flat, right, because of the threat of prediction markets and the growth of them. But we've seen Kalshi actually kind of plateau for the first time in recent memory. Looking at a graphic right now, we've had the spike for the Super Bowl, and then this is usually when things die down. Yes, there's March Madness, but usually sports betting handle kind of goes down over the course of the spring and summer until we get back to football season.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to the early line here on SportsGrid. Major League Baseball getting ready for another big weekend of games, and Joe and I are going to chop it up with some of the different topics that are going on, including the Boston Red Sox, whose season is effectively over. It's very hard to be 12 games under 500 looking as bad as the Red Sox do offensively. They just can't score runs. The president of the club this week, Sam Kennedy, said that the Red Sox season is embarrassing and unacceptable. They already fired their manager, Alex Cora, thinking there would be some sort of turnaround from there. But it felt like a strange offseason, Joe, for them. And I know that they're pointing a lot to not signing Alex Bregman, and that's why things fell apart. But honestly, I think it's just so much more deeper than that. And the club's offense is just not built to win right now. I know they thought that, but scoring 2 runs a game isn't going to beat anybody.
Yeah, again, there's I think a little bit of egos going on there in that building there. I think Alex Cora might have seen the writing on the wall and might have been like, this is not a team. They're not a very experienced. There's only a handful of veterans on that team. It's one thing if you're going to fire the manager in Philadelphia, right, and make a change with a team that has been there and done this before. Man, there's a lot of young guys, a lot of new guys in Boston that really haven't quite figured it out to begin with. It just felt so odd. And usually where there's smoke, there's fire. And now Boston's going from, okay, we're going to win the American League East to now they might be sellers at the deadline, Craig? Is that what we're looking at here?
Not might be, will be. I mean, the team can't play. I mean, and not only that, I like Ranger Suarez, and he's having a good season, but now what was the point of all that? You're sitting on $200 million of a pitcher on a losing team. Maybe Aroldis Chapman could be a chip for them to trade. Chapman, I mean, for the last few years, once again, has been one of the very best relievers in Major League Baseball. But you may remember back in 2022, and I know it was a while ago, but Chapman was struggling at the end of that season. And the Yankees decided not to put him on the playoff roster. And Chapman essentially saying he doesn't want to go back to New York unless he gets an apology from Brian Cashman. But I don't know, Joe, that Chapman's going to have to worry about that, because I don't ever remember a scenario where the Red Sox helped the Yankees win the postseason, or the Yankees, it's not going to happen. I don't think a trade like this would happen. I don't think he has to worry about it.
Yeah, first of all, I'm fairly certain Cashman's not worried about having to apologize. So, because he would never pull the trigger on it to begin with anyway. The Yankees have some issues, but it has nothing to do with needing a Chapman right now or that kind of drama. Yankees have some other directions to go, but it's nice of him to bring it up. But it ain't going to Yankees are not getting help from the Red Sox. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah, even if the trade matches up, these two teams rarely make trades. And when they do, it's in the offseason and it's minor league players or something like that.
Yep.
All right, Rangers, Red Sox, let's get to this tonight. One of the fascinating things that I keep seeing in the betting market, Joe, is the fact that somehow with the Red Sox losing every single night, the amount of money that's got to be made betting against them has got to be number one in baseball this season, because the odds makers still don't make them a huge dog. In fact, they're pretty much favorites like every night. I don't understand this, Joe. It makes no sense to me. I was talking about this on Newswire, and once again tonight, they're minus 126. How could you possibly back Boston watching what they're doing?
No idea. I mean, and because you got also two teams currently heading in different directions, right? I mean, Boston they can't hit water if they fell out of a boat. And yet the Rangers finally got a little healthier, and now they're starting to hit the ball. And now the Rangers look like, what are they at 500 for the first time, I feel like, in forever. So, I kind of like I'm with you. I like the Rangers here. But Sonny Gray's had an amazing season thus far. I'll give him credit. It seems to be he's the only guy that seems to be able to win games when he starts for the Red Sox. So Leiter's actually been good too. So I kind of still think that you got two teams, different directions. I think Texas is pretty good value on the board here tonight.
Dodgers yesterday, couple of injuries. One that's potentially serious. The other one we're not so sure. But let's touch on the first. And this is Will Smith heading to the injured list. Of course, the Dodgers can afford to have anybody hurt because they just plug and play guys like nobody's business on every team. And so in this case, I'm assuming Dalton Rushing is the catcher until Will Smith comes back, Joe. But Smith is arguably one of baseball's best catchers, but it's a minimum IL stint, it looks like. So June 23rd could have him back.
Yes. They'll have to weather the storm here, right? I mean, we learned of Ohtani taking a seat there yesterday, halfway through the game. Now Will Smith. But like you said, it's the other thing this Dodgers team has is plenty enough depth to be able to withstand these kinds of stretches in the season here. They're already, 46-25. I think they'll be just fine. And you got to love it because all these reinforcements will be back in another month or so. So as the season moves on, the Dodgers will actually get healthier. They have more than enough to be able to weather this.
Meanwhile, as we mentioned, Ohtani left the game yesterday with a knee issue. It looks like he'll be able to be back in the lineup, so that's good news if Dave Roberts is saying that. Let's hear from him after the game last night.
Hey, we saw that he left the game with knee inflammation. How is he feeling, and just what is your level of concern with that?
Not high. I think that we tried to be smart about it and, talk to the trainer and said he had a little behind the knee, a little hamstring. So just wanted to be smart and not push it. So I feel good about him being in there tomorrow, but obviously with the travel tonight, we'll just kind of see how he comes in.
So we'll see if Ohtani's in the lineup. If you're interested in betting in that market on the Dodgers, make sure you check your lineups in a few hours from now. Finally, how about this story here in San Diego? Manny Machado, who is maybe a future Hall of Famer, Joe, I think most people would agree, may not be if this is the end for his career. I mean, because what's funny about guys at the end of their careers, Joe, is that even if they don't hit great, they just have those counting stats. You know, they play out their careers, they hit a few bombs, they add to their numbers. But there's no adding to your numbers when you're hitting 172 on the season. Machado has been working with Aaron Judge's hitting coach, and it didn't work. And so there's no excuses, and basically said that the hitting coach work is not the reason for his struggles. It's just him.
Well, it's, he's at that point in his career, right, where he realizes you might as well be throwing a golf ball at him right now, because he's not seeing it well at all. And you know what happens, Craig, with guys like this? It starts to be above the shoulders. Not that he doesn't have the ability, but all of a sudden, man, it's just as the season rolls on, and now he's going up there thinking he can't hit. It doesn't get good. But you know what? Hitting is contagious, and I couldn't figure out what was going on with Tatis either. There's no reason for him to have been as bad as he's been. So hopefully if one guy turns it around, maybe that'll spark here and get Machado going in the right direction.
And Juan Soto thinks that fans can get motivated by the Knicks. Check this out.
I know you were at the Knicks game the other night. When you see how the city has rallied around a team like that, how much, if any, added motivation does that give you guys to get to that spot?
I mean, when you see the fans and how they get crazy like that, it's always motivate you to be at the top. Definitely, like you said, it's impressive. It's motivating. I would love to all my teammates to get to see how it was in Madison Square Garden on those finals games, and it was really cool to see and how the fans how they react.
Yeah, I'm not going to be critical at all of that comment from Soto, regardless of what he said, Joe, because he's only answering a question that was asked of him, right? Like, that never comes up if that question isn't asked. So I'm not concerned that, listen, if the Mets can take motivation from anything this season, they got to take it. And so if the Knicks winning does it, good for them. We'll be back with more of the early line right
now. Yet. Can we just wait until they
That's
win,
true,
please?
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Terrible start last year, injured all the way through, didn't have a chance to win that Major League Baseball season. This year, first team to 20 wins, first team to 30 wins, first team to 40 wins. It's all in the Atlanta Braves. Good baseball club lurking around here.
They still have some guys, some starting pitchers on the shelf there that could help them down the road, but the Braves are sitting pretty right now.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
For Abdul Carter. Hey, son, you want to be a leader? Show up to meetings on time. Don't be late to practice. This guy's sitting there trying to tell me that he's got a problem with Jackson Dart going to a Trump rally when he can't even show up to a meeting on time? And he can't show up to practice and he's late? Dude.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Well, the talk has been about sports betting handle being down or flat, right, because of the threat of prediction markets and the growth of them. But we've seen Kalshi actually kind of plateau for the first time in recent memory. Looking at a graphic right now, we've had the spike for the Super Bowl, and then this is usually when things die down. Yes, there's March Madness, but usually sports betting handle kind of goes down over the course of the spring and summer until we get back to football season.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to the early line here on Sports Grid. Some football news for your Friday morning to get to. We'll start off with college football. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has sent a formal letter to the Big 12 threatening legal action if the conference moves to sanction Texas Tech over its support for quarterback Brendan Sorsby. Talk about one of the more complicated stories in college football going right now here, Joe. Sorsby, who allegedly was caught betting on sports on some unders, yes, in some small amounts, is now being allowed to play college football next season because of a judge in Texas. To be clear, he has been suspended for the first 2 games, but that's not even a slap on the wrist, Joe. That's like a slap on the finger. If we're going to allow our college athletes, regardless of the amounts of the bets, to bet on sports without taking a full suspension of a year or longer, I kind of understand what some of these teams are thinking, and I know it feels like sour grapes from some of these teams that are saying that they won't even want to play this team if they're going to allow this kid to play. Do you think we've seen the end of this story?
Absolutely. I mean, all of this hand-wringing and moral posturing, and this is all the NCAA's fault. This entire situation was created by them years ago here because they didn't handle this situation back in the day when guys were just asking for stipends and things. Can we get a little something while you're raking in billions of dollars, to the point where here we are now. All of a sudden, we've got guys that are being allowed to play that broke some sort of unwritten rule about betting on their teams. Don't hate the player. Don't hate the school. Hate the game, because this is exactly what the NCAA set up, and it's exactly what they were hoping for. So now they can go to Congress and say, if only we had, an antitrust exemption here, then we could actually, we can step in and do something about it. The whole thing, just pawns on a chessboard is all this is here, Craig.
The University of Florida Gators are going to be upgrading the Swamp. The cost is $1.45 billion. Now, there's a lot in play here. Number one in play is that you understand the need to upgrade the Swamp. It hasn't been upgraded ever, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they did add some boxes there years ago, but that's been it. Look, the Gators and the University of Florida are one of the most popular schools in the country. Their football team certainly has not been anything special over the last few years. This is the biggest number in the history of the SEC. It's the biggest number in the history of any kind of expansion for any college football stadium. But this price tag of $1.45 billion seems to be more than a renovation, Joe. Like, this seems to be like a new stadium here. I wonder if they're even going to be able to play in the stadium for a year while they renovate.
Yeah, it's funny, right? You know what it is? It's at that old building trick here. Like, this in South Florida, right? Instead of knocking the whole house down, you leave one wall up and call it a renovation instead of a new build, and you save all that money on the new impact fees and everything else. It feels like that's what they're going to do. They're going to knock down everything, and they're going to leave up one brick wall, and they're going to be like, it's just a renovation. That's all it is, to the tune of $1.5 billion. That's not a renovation. That is we're blowing it up and starting from scratch.
The Denver Broncos have decided to lock up Sean Payton, as Sean Payton had a really nice season, of course, with Denver. It's a new 5-year contract through 2030. His record is 32-19. It was one tough year with Payton when he took over the reins in Denver, and then he said, you know what, Russell Wilson, we're sending you somewhere else. And then 2 years later, he ended up retiring and going to CBS. They lost to the Patriots 10-7, but I think that, when you look at coaches in the NFL, and, I don't like to look around the league and say there's great coaches or bad coaches, but there's a group that are probably better than the rest, and Sean Payton's in that category.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the knock on him was, what's he going to do without Drew Brees? Well, there's your answer. He's going to get a new 5-year extension with the Denver Broncos, and he's doing it with a quarterback that nobody thought could play in the NFL, ironically enough, out of Oregon here in Bo Nix. So, yes, you're right. There are coaches, and then there's that step above where if he's available he will be unemployed for all of 30 seconds if you let him go. So if you're Denver, of course you lock him up because he just wins wherever he goes.
In case you missed this story yesterday, former Jets first-round linebacker Darren Lee has been indicted on a murder charge in the death of his 29-year-old girlfriend. Prosecutors are seeking a first-degree murder conviction, which carries a life sentence, and a decision on whether to pursue the death penalty is expected in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts broke his silence on Thursday in the A.J. Brown trade, taking the high road, saying that nothing can take away the championship that Brown won with the Philadelphia Eagles, and certainly loved him as a teammate. Meanwhile, his new teammate is Drake May. A.J. Brown said he really loves what he sees with his young quarterback.
The talent speaks for itself. You know, he can make any throw. But I think what's more impressive to me is that he knows what he's doing. And to be that young, and to understand the defense and to understand every little check, the hots, the blitz, and all those things so young and so fast is very impressive. And so I really admire that. He knows what he's talking about. He demands everybody else to know as well, you know. And he's a true leader. He's a true leader of men. And it's crazy to see at a young age, you know, he's a true leader of men. So,
Joe, there's always this little honeymoon period. I feel like that's what's happening right now with A.J. Brown and the New England Patriots here. I think he'll help them a lot, but in the end, I don't know. Is this a difference-making player for them this year?
I think it's the first time I've actually heard him speak in about, 3 years? Usually he's just reading books on the sideline, or we're getting some sort of X post like it. So he does actually speak. It's amazing what clearing the air and, like you said, that honeymoon period will do. What, you didn't have that feeling with Jalen Hurts when you were with him? All right, well, we'll see how this all works out, Greg, by the time November rolls around.
All right, we'll take a quick break here on the early line, and we'll come back with more. So stay with us. More NBA previews, Stanley Cup as well, and prediction markets in less than an hour. You're watching the early line on SportsGrid. Don't go away. Is there a quarterback controversy in Minnesota, or is this just simply about getting a new quarterback in Minnesota? I think that's the question that you have to ask. Kevin O'Connell here on the early line says that the quarterback competition between Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy will go into training camp, saying that I want to see these guys in a very unique and difficult circumstance elevate their games to help the Vikings. First, let's hear from Wes Phillips, the OC of the Vikings, talking about J.J. McCarthy, who will battle it out with Kyler Murray.
Stood out to you about J.J.'s growth?
It's just been a continuous upward arrow for him, and it's fun. It is fun to see guys come back in shape. Guys have been working, and then at certain positions where you just notice that guys have been working from a skill and fundamental standpoint as well on the things that have been talked about throughout a season, and they come back and you say, oh, that looks a little better. Oh, look at him. I can tell he's been working on that, been very intentional in the offseason on his own when nobody's watching. So there's several things with JJ that we noticed right off the bat that were improvements from things that he had done or continuing to grow on some of those techniques and fundamentals.
Specifically, are there some that stand out?
Yeah, I mean, without getting into specifics, I mean, you guys are going to dig into every side-eye look or anything you can possibly, and I totally understand that, but we have a good culture here. These guys are competing, and they're up for the challenge.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt here that we're going to have a story to cover in training camp, Joe. I don't know, though. I tend to think that this is one of those stories where if you have two quarterbacks, do you really have one? I just don't know that I'm confident in either of these guys. But look, O'Connell has been known for getting quarterbacks right. Do you think that he has one out of two here?
It's so interesting because you have one guy in Murray that is trying to resurrect his career, and we don't know if that's possible. And then you got a young guy that, is really motivated, it sounds like, to prove the whole world wrong. So, if O'Connell's as good as we think he is, if he is a quarterback whisperer, I would bet that one of those two guys is going to come out of this a starting quarterback and better off for it. I don't know who it's going to be, but I do think this kind of competition and motivation for both these guys is going to separate the men from the boys. And the big question to me has always been, does Kyler Murray want to play football? Does he, because it looks like, the other guy does in a big way. So let's see, may the best man win. That's all.
Justin Jefferson also spoke with the media yesterday and weighed in on his growth as a professional. McCarthy.
What you've seen from JJ this spring compared to last year, where have you seen him change or where have you seen him develop?
Yeah, I've seen him change a lot, which is normal. Being a young quarterback in this league and having a year under his belt, you get to learn a couple things. You get to learn how to be, a professional, how to really, take care of your body, take care of your arm, and obviously take care of your mind. So I feel like he's definitely gotten a little bit more smarter into reading the different coverages, understanding the different throws that he's making. Everything doesn't have to be 100 miles per hour. Just some throws, can put a little touch on it and get it to the spot. So I feel like that is, one of his most impactful improvements that he has made. And it's just about continue to work with him. Continue to understand, JJ and understand K1 as well. They're two different guys and they're two different quarterbacks. They both throw differently. They both have a different mindset. So it's just all about, just continue to work with them, continue to, have the work outside of this building, and during the season, during the summertime, get with them and make sure we're dialed in.
Justin Jefferson had such a tough season last year, Joe, and I don't think he cares who the quarterback is. He just wants the ball.
Yes, exactly correct. That's all he wants. He's like any receiver, right? Isn't that what it's all about? Just, somebody competent, throw me the ball, and I'll be good to go, win or lose. Feels like we're going to get that in New England as well.
First hour of our show is in the books. We got another hour to go. We got prediction markets coming up in 30 minutes from now. So stay with us here on Sports Grid. You're watching the early line, getting you ready for the big weekend in sports. And we'll be back with hour number 2 coming up in just a couple minutes. And welcome back to the early line here on Sports Grid. I'm Craig Mish in this month as we get you ready for World Cup action. Joe Raineri, of course, here with me as we break down everything happening in the world of sports and sports betting as well. It's a big World Cup weekend. We've got that. Of course, the Stanley Cup Finals now on the possibility of one game away from one team winning, and the NBA Finals resumes tomorrow. So let's get started with some of our top stories here on the show, and that includes the Carolina Hurricanes, one win away from their first Stanley Cup in 20 years. They defeated the Golden Knights last night 4-2 in Game 5, and now Game 6 is Sunday night in Vegas, where Carolina can close it out. But Joe, it seems to me, from talking to you about this at least a bit, sounds like you think Vegas has got a shot to win this next one, and we could be headed toward a Game 7.
Craig, I always thought it was a Game 7 in this series because I did not see a whole lot separating these two teams. They're both more than capable of obviously finding the back of the net. We know that. But we also know both goaltending has been a little bit shaky, to say the least. I love the experience Vegas has at being back home, backs against the wall. I expect a huge effort for them. I think Carolina eventually wins it in Game 7 on their own home ice, but I do think Vegas very much alive to get this thing to a Game 7.
Tariq Skubal pitched in the minor leagues last week. It went well. The Tigers have decided to activate him off the injured list. He's back after having what they called loose bodies in his pitching elbow. He had a new surgery that got him back on the field quicker. It looks like it potentially has worked. He'll start in Cleveland, a little bit over a month away was what we were told when he got hurt. It was hard to believe, Joe, but it turns out to be a reality here. We'll just see how healthy he is and how deep he can go on Saturday.
Yeah, it's very strange, right? And you got to wonder is the fact that, he is due for, and you brought this up last hour, is important, that, will there even be any baseball or free agency period remains to be seen. But he is due for quite the payday here. I don't think he needs to throw another pitch, Greg. Honest, I don't know what he's trying to rush back for. But if it's simply because, is he really okay? Because this is very strange that you go under the knife with an elbow, clean out whatever, and then a month later, all of a sudden, I'm ready to go on a team that, I don't know, can't even get to 500 here, it feels like at this point. So the whole thing is very strange to me. I wonder if it's money motivated.
Meanwhile, talk about strange. Story out of nowhere yesterday ahead of the upcoming U.S. Open. How about this one? Phil Mickelson no longer a member at the Farms Golf Club outside San Diego after a female club employee has accused him of inappropriate contact with her before a round of golf earlier this spring. Talk about a story I didn't see coming here on this Friday. This is one of them.
This broke yesterday, and it's interesting because we just had, the PGA Championship, which he withdrew from. He has been citing that there's a family health issue, that he is stepping away from, golf at this point. But it felt very weird because there was no, everyone's like, where's Phil? And then all of a sudden there's this family issue and nobody really knew what was going on. And then this story broke, and where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And it'll be interesting to see. His attorneys have finally made a statement saying that there's a lot of misinformation, but the only information we're hearing is being leaked out of the club right now that he had to go.
Now, in the case of Henry Ruggs, he's been denied parole by a Nevada Board of Parole Commissioners. He's serving a prison sentence after pleading guilty in 2023. He had a DUI resulting in death and misdemeanor from a 2021 crash that killed a woman and her dog. I don't know, honestly, that there's much more for you or I to add about this, so we're going to move on. How about the World Cup? Mexico wins yesterday 2-0 over South Africa. So certainly a good start for them. But this was the appetizer, Joe, for the main course, which is today. Canada will play Bosnia at 3 p.m. Eastern, and then the United States plays Paraguay tonight at 9.
Hold on, I got a hydration break here, quick. Hold on.
I already hit mine. What is that you're drinking right there, by the way?
Okay, good. Oh, that's some sort of orange, electrolyte thing there. I can tell you this, the main conversation of after yesterday's two matches was, why are there commercials running during a soccer match? And that is going to continue. So, yes, get ready. FIFA has sold a whole lot of commercials now within these soccer matches. No more 90 minutes and go on with your life. You're going to have to deal with hydration breaks and commercials here on out. But hoping Team USA can get the win at a pretty good price here today.
Shohei Ohtani left yesterday's start with some knee inflammation. Dave Roberts told reporters yesterday that he doesn't think that it's anything and that he could potentially play on Friday. I guess I'll be a little skeptical of that, but it doesn't seem like it's anything significant, or he would have given us some information. But Joe, as you know, the way that this works, player gets hurt in sports, immediately we hear good news. And then, half the time it's not good news. But I think with Ohtani, it sounds like he could play. And if not on Friday, maybe this weekend. But he's having, of course, this incredible season with a 6-2 record on the mound, 1.06 earned run average.
Yeah, and it really does feel like it was coming off of the night prior, which he pitched and the bullpen melted down. Then he and he hit in that game, right? Then yesterday, he hit a home run. I think he was 2 for 2, and then all of a sudden the knee was an issue, and they sat him down. And it felt all very precautionary because they were leaving that game last night, heading to Chicago for a new series here. So, yeah, I think he'll be just fine. But it just felt like, all right, let's give him a breather here. We should be good to go.
Wimbledon announces a 20% increase in prize money, raising their total to $85.8 million. Singles champions earning $4.8 million. But that falls short of what some players have been pushing for, including the world's #1 player, Aryna Sabalenka. She said that she's even floated a boycott if demands are not met.
Yeah, this is just in time too, right, for the Serena comeback. I think all of a sudden now listen. Apparently, they have been screaming about not being paid enough money on professional tennis, which I think is kind of funny since it's always the same 4 people that win every tournament in the men and women's side anyway. But okay, Wimbledon is saying, all right, we'll give you more money. Kind of what the Live Tour did, but that didn't work out all that well.
New York has renamed a Manhattan street corner Thierry Henry, which is ahead of the 2026 World Cup, honoring the French icon and former Red Bull star. At 50th Street at 6th Avenue, he joins Pele, who has been honored over in Queens. Both run through November as New York hosts the World Cup matches at MetLife, including the final. We're getting real busy in New York these days, Joe. We got OG Anunoby Day. We're renaming streets after soccer players. It's been a really busy time for some of these people.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you don't, use the GPS because you're not going to know the name of the streets anymore as they all get renamed. Bridges, I think, are coming. Hospitals will be changed, and everything will be Knicks, except for the fact that they haven't won anything yet. But okay, let's go with it. Keep renaming the streets. I guess it's the least they can do.
Maybe we'll Raineri Street in Jupiter. Maybe that's the next one.
No. Set it on fire.
Palm Beach? Joe Raineri Stadium?
Yeah.
Joe
They
Raineri
won't even
Field?
let me over the bridge. Who are you kidding?
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. You have to walk, but they'll let you over it.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll be back with more of the early line next here. We'll be joined by Kevin Walsh. Don't go away. Welcome back to the early line here on Sports Grid. Always great to catch up with Kevin Walsh. He's getting ready for World Cup Day 2. And Joe Raineri, of course, is always with us. Kevin, thanks for coming on the show. I mean, hard to keep up with everything going on right now with the NBA, the World Cup, Stanley Cup, baseball. I even did a WNBA preview of a game that I had never heard of happening tonight, to be honest with you. But Kevin, great to have you here. And, certainly I think that we're heading into a pretty big Game 5. I don't know. It's like funny. Like the assumption seems to be that the Spurs are going to win this one and we're just simply going to have a Game 6. Do you feel that way, or do you think that there's a chance this goes the other way?
No, I think this certainly could go the other way. I'm you always try and just see where people are at and what their expectations are. See, if there's a public leaning consensus on a game here, and the Spurs are booked as 5.5-point favorites. I feel like there's a lot of Knicks confidence in this game specifically. Like, of course, there's a lot of confidence in the series. The only time we had a 3-1 comeback was the LeBron James Cavs. So, NBA history suggests this series is over for the second time, because it was also suggested to be over when the Knicks took the 2-0 series lead. And obviously at halftime of Game 4, it probably felt over in a different direction than it actually now feels. I think the Knicks still do feel due for a really good full game. And I can't shake that they've been able to absolutely massacre their opponent with closeout opportunities on the table. Like, we're talking about 40-point victories, with Atlanta, Philly, and Cleveland. And I wonder if some of that is where the traveling New York crowd comes into play. And I don't think it's Spurs fans' fault. I don't even know if it's necessarily that, Knicks fans are the best fans in basketball. It's that it costs half the price to fly to San Antonio, get in the building to potentially watch your team clinch a championship, than it does to sniff Madison Square Garden. And I think that's part of it is there's I think a shock for everybody involved when you're 5 minutes into the game, and it does sound closer to Madison Square Garden than it does, a home game for these teams here. So I haven't bet anything yet, but I find myself once again kind of expecting the Knicks to roll here a little bit. Now, I thought the Knicks were going to roll in Game 4, and I managed to be wrong. I laid 2.5. I was like, listen, if they only win by 1 or 2, I'm wrong about this game. I was wrong about the game, despite the fact that they won.
So, to me, Kev, we're at the point where it was such an anomaly, that Game 4, right? The whole trip to New York was just absolutely crazy. To me, it comes down to, did the Knicks leave it all out on the court in that comeback, historic comeback? Or did the Spurs, because of their youth and inexperience, are they throwing in the towel now because at 3 games to 1, the chances of them coming back are all? To me, that's the only question. Do the Knicks have enough left in the tank, or would they be willing to say, you know what, we got mad, we're up 3-1, we can exhale a little bit? But I don't know. Are the Spurs laying down here? Because that's the big question to me.
I think the Knicks are very fortunate this wasn't a one-day rest situation, because the Jose Alvarado Cat press conference, I was looking for a champagne bottle on the table. It felt like they won the championship. It certainly did not feel like, we'll see everybody Saturday. So I think they definitely needed the extra 24 hours to kind of decompress and collect themselves. The Spurs is a hard one to get a grasp on, because I've been saying this, obviously, Joe and Craig, we've talked a little bit about this series. I really don't think the Spurs have respected the Knicks. I think a part of that huge comeback was a lack of respect, and top down. Usually it's a players thing. I remember, though, the platoon squad Kentucky team with John Calipari as their head coach. The reason that team didn't close out an unbeaten season is John Calipari was 100% positive they were going to go unbeaten and never thought anybody could beat them. And I don't think Mitch Johnson at any point thought they were going to lose to the Knicks as they were blowing that lead until it was too late. So I say all of that to say, it doesn't feel like the Spurs are going to have a defeatist attitude when they are constantly, I think, portraying that they're playing a JV team, but they're also down 3-1 in the series with the worst blown lead in the history of the NBA Finals.
Kevin, I think as we put a bow real quick on the series is that most of us, as we've talked about, feel like we want a 7-game series. But it's really hard to look past what happened in the last game and think that we're going to get a better game than that. Do you think that the Spurs, who trailed by almost 30 in a game, can do one of two things? Either use that and say, let's never let that happen again, or fall victim to, if they do trail at any point in this game, think to ourselves, well, you know what? Our series is over. Our best shot that we had was to win the next one. I guess it could go either way with this one. I'm just not sure which one it is.
No, you're absolutely right, Craig. I think what's so tough for San Antonio, though, is they've won every first quarter in this series. They win every first quarter they play. And so you asked, understand it, like if the Knicks are up 10, what happens? Early in the game. I don't know. But I know that if the Spurs are up 10, it doesn't matter. Which is a crazy thing for San Antonio, that they were able to establish these early leads on OKC, and I do think OKC felt it. They were able to lean on the Thunder a little bit. The Knicks are down 10. Cat's in foul trouble. Brunson can't hit a shot, and it's all good. Jose Alvarado's running around, keeping things afloat. It's what this team has been able to do. Not just this, they did it last year. It's not even just the Mike Brown thing. They did it with Tibbs.
Kevin, World Cup action today. What's on the docket later today?
Yeah, we're live in-game live, 3 p.m. for Canada, 9 o'clock tonight for USA Paraguay.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a great show.
You got it, guys.
All right, welcome back to the early line here on Sports Grid. Aaliyah Boston, 34 points, 12 rebounds. Caitlin Clark last night, 32 points, 10 assists, and a game winner, by the way. Became the first pair of teammates in WNBA history to record 30-point double-doubles in the same game as the Fever beat Chicago 114-106 in overtime. It was Clark's third career game with at least 30 points and 10 assists, also a WNBA record. Keep in mind, she's only been in the WNBA for a couple of years here. All right, now it's time for us to tell you what we have, of course, for the big weekend. We'll go through our polls and also our best bets. It's time for Fade the Public. All right, let's start with our poll. What are you most excited to watch this weekend? And the poll says, by a wide margin, that the NBA Finals Game 5 will be the poll that everyone would be voting on. That's not a surprise. FIFA World Cup, 22%. Stanley Cup Finals, 11%. But Gabe was one of those voters, so it's really 9. Canadian Open at 0. Joe, for me, obviously, this is an easy one. I mean, it's the NBA Finals, but I'm very disappointed that I'm sitting here hosting this show, and Tommy did not put the Marlins Pirates here on our poll, because that would have got a vote from me, Tommy. Very disappointed in you here, but I'm just kidding, obviously. Joe, look, I know that you'll be locked into the NBA Finals, so I'm not even going to pretend that one, but I'm going to ask you for second place. World Cup or hockey?
Absolutely.
Which one? World Cup
absolutely. It's World Cup. No, it's not. It's hockey. Because listen, we have an opportunity here for Game 7s, and there is nothing better in the world of sports than an NHL winner-take-all Game 7, and that is what I am looking forward to. That is what I am hoping we get, and I think we got a pretty good shot with Vegas bouncing back here at home with an opportunity to get us just that, Greg, a Game 7. Nothing like do-or-die, winner-take-all situations there. I love that, and that's what the NHL brings to the table.
Let me double down on this real quick. I'm going to give you another option. USA World Cup versus Game 6 of the Stanley Cup again. The same answer? I'm probably same answer for you, but I'm throwing you at Team USA out there. Is it closer then?
It's closer simply because of the multiple television sets that I have hanging on a wall. So I have no problem keeping the NHL in one and Team USA on the second there, although I'm not going to lie, the commercial breaks are going to throw me for a loop. But I am very intrigued about this Team USA because everyone I talk to, Craig, I can't seem to get a straight answer of, like, are they any good? They're all right. Like, nobody seems to have any faith that Team USA is capable of winning maybe more than a game or two. And I think maybe that's a good sign to say, you know what, since nobody's thinking they should do anything, maybe that's the time to start betting them.
And my option wasn't even on the board for travel ball baseball at Roger Dean Stadium. That's my option for the weekend. That's my number one option because that's where I'll be today, and that's where I'll be Saturday, and then maybe Sunday as well. So busy weekend for me.
That's great.
But what is new? All right, time now for our best bets. Bye. All right, Joe, no lineups out here. It's still too early for the Braves and Mets to figure out who's going to be in there. So to me, it's always dangerous here. But you like the first 5 in a game today. Who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going to go. If I'm going to get, McLean? Is it Perez? Is it Strider? Who is it? Bottom line is, I like McLean. I think he turned a corner. He had a rough patch, couple of bad outings over the last month. But I really did like, and I think it was all mechanical there, but I really do like what I saw from him last outing against the Padres and the Braves. No Acuna, he's on the shelf. I call me crazy. I think runs are going to be harder to come by here today. I don't care who's starting for the Braves. It's going to be a first 5 under 4.5 for me, Craig.
All right, and I'll go with a baseball game in San Francisco. The Giants did end up scoring 10 runs in a single inning to come back and win their game with a walk-off to win it. But they can't score runs, and neither can the Cubs. So we'll go under 8 runs. Cubs versus Giants for our best bet of the day. We have Prediction Markets Edge coming up next, so make sure you stick around with us here on SportsGrid. Don't go away.